So that's like what you'd expect out of like old school green-red monsters. But he's made some updates to it. You know, he's playing 3 Genesis Hydra, for example, in the deck, along with a Hornet Queen.
Yeah, Hornet Queen and an Arbor Colossus at the top end, so he's got a little spice in his deck.
Yeah. Now, is he going all... If you're playing Arbor Colossus and Hornet Queen, are we going far enough down the road to be playing Nykthos, or is this just a monster, a ramp deck?
He does have, it looks like 1 Nykthos in his deck.
Okay. So not a huge commitment to Nykthos, but the possibility to just go off with tons of mana.
Which is cool. I like that. I mean, it's very, very close to a free roll, especially since he doesn't have Mutavault, which most of the monsters decks do. And I feel like those decks can get away with a couple colorless lands. It all just depends on what kind of utility you want.
So this is kind of an interesting matchup. Neither of these are like the established quote-unquote best decks of the format, but I've been interested that like the base of Sylvan Caryatid plus like Elvish Mystic plus 1 to 2 additional colors has like, to me, that's the thing that spawned a lot of different decks in this format.
Yeah, certainly. And this might be another one of those things where it is the last week of the format. And, you know, maybe Weston has played his deck a bunch. I'm not sure. I know that Michael actually does love his deck and thinks it's really good. But this might be one of those things where like people are just like, I want to just play a sweet deck.
Yeah. If I were going to play a sweet deck, I would say like Mystic plus Caryatid plus Courser plus whatever sweet cards I wanted to play. You
like
know,
Rabblemaster Porphyros.
Sure, yeah, that's
Scion
great.
of Vitu-Ghazi.
Scion of Vitu-Ghazi. You know, I might try to throw in some blue cards there too.
You would.
Yeah. Well, if you have the option of playing blue mana. Looks like Michael here's on the mulligan. All right, so going to be both players on 6 cards. And it's interesting. So on paper, how would you expect, I guess, like, how would you expect a matchup like this to go, right? Green-red is kind of this, it's like mid-range ramp deck, whereas Michael Majors is doing the same thing, but instead of ramping, he's doing these, like, high synergy plays.
Yeah, I think Majors, well, like, both decks kind of just want to, like, accelerate into a 4 and a 5 drop. So the Elvish Mystics and Sylvan Caryatids and the die roll are all going to be very important factors in who gets out ahead first, and then, like, who is able to, like, keep that momentum going throughout the match. So I think those are the big cards, the Mystics and the Caryatids, just the mana acceleration. And then it kind of looks like Majors has a little bit more interaction. He has like more control-y elements, things like Voice of Resurgence, and then he has Porphyros to go long. So I think he might actually just be the control deck in this matchup, whereas Weston has things like Xenagos, God of Revels, where he just wants to like get through like that last push of damage.
Yeah, Mizzium Mortars and Banishing Light, as you mentioned, those are removal in Major's deck. A card like Voice, now when both players are just like tap out ramping, a card like Voice can kind of be like end up being a little small, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to attack through Sylvan Caryatid and Corsair Crewfix with a 2/2, even if it leaves a body behind, and that might be Major's best play, is actually just like suiciding it or chump blocking with it as early as possible, just to have that token, and then maybe he can use it to proliferate with Scion of Vitu-Ghazi and like actually get some sort of offense going that way. But I would not expect Voice of Resurgence to be too powerful in this matchup overall, just because the initial body is so small.
Yeah, and Weston's deck, by and large, plays on his own turn, it looks like. As opposed to, like, you're not going to get those, you're not going to seriously inconvenience him with the static ability.
Nope, yeah, he has 3 lightning strikes and like a Pelucranos activation, which doesn't affect Voice or anything, and Storm Breath Monsters activation. But other than that, like, he is playing at sorcery speed.
Yeah. Weston looks like he's going to keep on 6, has had triple hand with 3 lands and Courser of Crewfix, so he'll be able to play. Majors looks like it's going to be going to 5, though.
Yeah, it looked like a land-heavy hand with an Elvish Mystic, so, you know, not bad. That's kind of what you want to see on 6 cards, just with a little bit more action.
Maybe one business spell would be enough to keep that hand?
Yeah. Yeah, like any sort of 4-drop. Like, if you go Mystic into Courser, like, that might be enough to keep, too. Maybe you can clear some lands off the top and actually draw into more relevant stuff.
But just Mystic and lands, you're playing with fire there.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta hope to be pretty lucky, and I think mulliganing to 5 and kind of hoping for like the same type of draw, like a Mystic or a Caryatid and some gas, is probably a better bet than just like hoping the top of your deck is kind.
Yeah, so Majors presenting here. I mean, Mystic to me was, whenever I played these Caryatid style decks, the difference between Elvish Mystic hands and non-Elvish Mystic hands to me has always felt really pronounced. Like, there's some, Mystic, the hands where I like play a turn 1 Mystic on the play feel insane, and the hands where my first play is a turn 2 Caryatid on the draw feel really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, then that's a slippery slope. It's like, well, maybe I should add more mana acceleration, and then you end up with a bunch of draws that are just mana acceleration and no gas. So,
Right. Well, both players start. Majors does have the Mystic there, but it's going to go ahead and hit a Lightning Strike from Weston. Yeah, it looks like Weston just has double Courser of Krufix, so I don't think he has any of his big plays yet. He's just planning to gain some card advantage as Majors scries and replaces his Mystic on his turn.
yeah, so Majors is almost certainly not too disappointed about his Mystic dying, seeing as how he had another one, and it means that Weston is not off to a very fast start himself.
Yeah, Weston does play a turn 3 Courser, reveals Forest. He's not going to be able to play that one for free, though. He's going to draw it. Top card is a Mizium Mortars. And both players just looking for like that Haymaker spell right now.
Yeah, and I think Weston has a Xenagos Planeswalker.
Yeah, he has Xenagos. His remaining cards in his hand are Xenagos the Reveler, Stormbreath Dragon, and Courser of Krufix. So he actually does have some of those business cards.
Yeah, so he's got enough action going on. Majors is just waiting in the wings here with Advent the Worm. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Weston's turn, whether or not he's able to sniff that out or not.
Yep, swings for 4 with both Courser and Xenagos, and here's Advent. He does not sniff it out, and it looks like he's going to lose both his Courser and his Xenagos to that play.
Yeah, and it's one of the advantages to playing a lesser-known archetype like something like Naya Tokens, where Advent might have been like a pretty popular card. Like when Dragon's Maze came out, you'd just be like, oh, they have 4 mana, obviously they have Advent, but people aren't used to playing around that anymore.
Well, especially because Majors was on a Moldify on the play. If I was in Weston's spot, I would think it's like pretty reasonable here that Michael's play, instead of holding up mana for Advent, was simply, I have no spells.
Yeah, and Michael had the opportunity to either play Mana Confluence or play Temple Garden untapped, and I think if you play Temple Garden untapped, like that's pause for concern, right?
Right, yeah, why'd you shock? And so now we're on to Majors' turn. He's going to play, what a turnaround here, right? So not only did he get the Advent there, but he's going to play a Goblin Rabblemaster pre-combat here and swing for 7. So this is probably 5 at Xenagos and 2 at Weston.
Yeah. And, you know, that's why you Moldify, because it's like you get hands like this where you get a little bit of action. Like Majors doesn't have a lot of follow-up, right? You know, he has a Banishing Light, but his draw has been very, very good so far.
Yeah. We do know that Weston has drawn Mizium Mortars for the turn. Doesn't have another land though, and looks like the fix is there's gonna be a shuffle here. Weston accidentally revealed the next card to Courser of Krufix. Since he hasn't scried anything to the bottom, the judge just gives him a warning, and then we reshuffle the deck.
Yeah, and I can totally understand that. It's like, well, I had this Courser last turn, and it shouldn't have died, you know? Like, how did it die? Oh, it got ambushed by this worm, and I just kind of forgot about it, but...
It's like if I left the top card revealed on accident, then when I draw it, I would just, like, naturally reveal the next one. And
exactly.
Be like, oh, wait, hey, that guy's gone. Courser recast for Weston. Sees another Xenagos on top, but no land here. And he's in a fair bit of a tough spot here. So even if he builds up to the Mizium Mortars mana, that's not going to be enough to kill Advent of the Worm. So it's like he needs to draw... he needs to draw a couple of things, right? He has to build up to 6 to sweep the board. At the same time, he has to deal with this worm token, which it doesn't look like he has a way to do right now.
It's going to be difficult to beat that thing. 5 is a lot of toughness. If Weston had something like Pelucranos, maybe he could do that, but otherwise, like, he's opening himself up to getting potentially blown out by a double block.
And huge play from Majors. This is Banishing Light. It removes Weston's only blocker, which clears the way for Rabblemaster and his tokens. This is going to be just a ton of damage. Rabblemaster swings for 4, Goblins for 6. This is a 12-point swing from Majors.
Yeah, and that's a big turn. And it's like Weston could have potentially left his Satyr back, but I think if Majors had a removal spell, he's already in a lot of trouble. So maybe you just play like they just don't have it at that point.
Yeah, if he'd left back a Satyr, he'd have saved himself 5 damage, right? Because Majors wouldn't have swung the Rabblemaster, and he'd have gotten to eat a token.
Or maybe he does attack with the Rabblemaster and you just block there, right? But, I mean, there's also a consideration to where, like, you're trying to build up to a triple block on that worm token because you know it's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, replacement Xenagos hits the board. It makes another Satyr here. So Weston will have some blockers, but none of them that can block a Trampler, and he's going to go ahead and attack.
Yeah, take 4.
He's just dead on the swing back, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think he was dead either way, so.
Okay.
He
Well,
just
I like the style. All
Yeah.
right. And Michael's just gonna make it hurt even more. Plays another Rabble Master, 2 more tokens, and this will be a lethal swing. All at Weston, and we should be on to game 2. And indeed we are.
Yeah, well, you see those Rabble Masters that Majors just added to his deck doing a lot of work.
Well, that guy, especially, he has the potential to just deal a lot of damage. And I think that's been one of the impressive parts of the card. It's like, first of all, it's a source of card advantage with the tokens. But more impressive to me is that when they don't have a blocker for a 2/2, just how hard Rabble Master hits.
Yeah, and sometimes they have a good blocker like Courser. You just have a removal spell and get to get in a bunch of damage.
Right. So we're going to go ahead and look at the sideboards. Let's go ahead and start with Weston's deck.
Yeah, Weston's presumably going to be on the play. He's got 4 Nylea's Disciple, 4 Mistcutter Hydra, 3 Anger of the Gods, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 1 Arbor Colossus, 1 Bow of Nylea. So it depends how he thinks this matchup is. Like, if I were in Weston's seat, I would be like, well, this guy is a pretty aggressive token deck, right? So, like, maybe we might see something like Nylea's Disciple come in. Anger of the Gods is also probably going to look pretty appealing against all those Goblin Rabble Masters. He still needs to find a way to deal with Advent of the Worm, but maybe something like Anger plus Mizzium Mortars could help clear that out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Scavenging Ooze is almost certainly going to be pretty good. Give him a decent blocker early and maybe some extra life points to help him stabilize. And then an Arbor Colossus, which might not have any targets, but is just like the biggest thing on the board and is conveniently bigger than an Advent of the Worm.
Yeah, and these green mirrors, especially in these like monster mirrors, having the largest creature seems pretty important. And I kind of liked where you hit with like Scavenging Ooze and Arbor Colossus. You know, once you get that Ooze to a 6/6, or just once you cast an Arbor Colossus, that guy can really turn the board around. And I would expect him to board in things like that.
Yeah, and maybe you're not attacking with Arbor Colossus, right? But if it's holding off all of Major's stuff, like that's all you really want.
Yeah. On Major's side of the board, he has some removal. He has some interesting options here, right? So he has Mizzium Mortars, which seems pretty good against green-red monsters, but I'm more interested in cards like Setessan Tactics, Nissa Worldwaker, or Archangel of Thune in this matchup.
Yep, those all seem pretty good. Nissa might just be more high-end stuff that you don't really want because presumably the Archangels are coming in and you already have Scion of Vitu-Ghazi, so that might be enough 5s to the point where maybe you don't want Nissa. But Tactics and Mortars definitely seem very good in this matchup.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. You're saying like this different array of 5s, like Scion, Nissa, Archangel. Like, what would you say? Like, how do you decide which ones you want in which matchup, right?
I feel like Scion is a card that is going to help you stabilize and can potentially get a Voice of Resurgence Elemental token or an Advent the Worm token and just kind of like help you stabilize. So in that regard, I think it's better against mid-range mirrors, whereas something like Nissa doesn't get hit by Supreme Verdict as bad. You know, they might be able to get a land or two, but the Nissa is still around to pressure them. So I think that is the card that's there for control decks. And then Archangel of Thune is probably just there for the beatdown decks, but having a flyer is really good in this matchup, especially since Majors didn't see anything like Arbor Colossus, like he doesn't know that they're there. And that's a card that might keep their Stormbreath Dragon back, which I think is probably a problem card for Majors.
Yeah, his deck certainly does not have many ways to deal with a Stormbreath. It has 3 Mizzium Mortars, and his other removal spell is Banishing Light, which doesn't help at all there.
Right, so your options are either Tactics it, Mortars it, or Race it, in which case the Archangel helps a lot, especially if you have something like Rabble Master just like spitting out tokens every turn.
Yeah. Now, usually on these decks, it's kind of interesting. We see Archangel of Thune in conjunction with a card like Scavenging Ooze or Courser of Krufix. Those are like the 2 big synergy plays for the card. But he actually has neither of those here. It's just playing the Archangel as a standalone creature.
Yeah, I mean, I think CVM really made people stop and think to whether or not like Courser is the card that you should really have in these green-red X mid-range decks, right? Where like, yeah, the card is very good, but it makes you play a more defensive game, which maybe you don't want to be doing. Maybe you just jam something like Goblin Rabble Master and just kill people.
Yeah, I mean, and that certainly to me is like, that's pretty reasonable. And, you know, it definitely worked out for CVM 2 weeks ago, taking down the Standard Open with that deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looked like it helped Majors in that game as well. Where like Courser would have been a fine card, right? But I don't think Majors was interested in playing a long game and like maybe getting some card advantage in life from that Courser. Like he just wanted Rabble Master.
Yeah, Rabble Master doing a lot of damage there. Did 1 with its tokens and then 6 on the next swing. So 4 from the Rabble Master and 2 more from the tokens. So certainly like that's the kind of damage output that Courser can't do at all.
Right.
And looks like Weston is keeping Majors' hand. Mystic, lands, and some removal. He's going to go ahead and keep that, though. This time, Weston has the turn 1 Elvish Mystic. And Majors will match it with one of his own. So, and this is like more of how I expected the matchup to play out, where both players are just kind of ramping into, like, both are going to start ramping out mid-range threats. Weston has a bit of a decision here. So he has an Elvish Mystic in play. He has a Sylvan Caryatid in hand and potential to make a turn 3 Arbor Colossus. But he also has Anger of the Gods in his hand, which plays really poorly with the start of Mystic Caryatid.
It does, but I think once you accelerate into Arbor Colossus, you might get to a point where Majors is trying to set up a double or triple block, and then you can just clear the board with Anger and start getting in there for 6. And then at that point, maybe you're all in on the 6/6, right? But I think that's probably worth it.
Yeah, Majors plays a 2-drop of his own. His 2-drop is Voice of Resurgence. And now we are back to Weston. He did not have the untapped land to play Arbor Colossus. He only had a Temple, so he's going to have to wait a turn. And decided to keep on top with the Scry. And it looks like he's planning to play a kill spell instead of playing the Courser. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and Lightning Strike the Voice of Resurgence down. And that's going to get Majors a token. So why the Lightning Strike on Voice there? Weston seemed to have it covered in blocks with the Caryatid.
I'm really not sure. I mean, maybe he just wants to kind of like keep the board down a little bit, or maybe this could be a trap, right? Like he could be setting up Majors to be like, dude, just overextend and like make that the voice trigger really, or the voice elemental really big, right? And then he can just like reset the board with Anger.
Yeah. I mean, but as I said before, Voice dying is actually something that Majors' deck was interested in, right? So you see right now Majors plays the 3rd creature and actually is able to swing with that 3/3 Voice token past the Caryatid.
Weston hasn't seen that aspect of Majors' deck, right? Like he hasn't seen the Scions, he hasn't seen the higher end stuff.
Yeah, so he's unaware that this is actually what Majors would prefer having the token to the Voice here. Another Scryline comes down for Weston. He's going to keep on top again. Now he has enough mana for Colossus, but instead he's going to go for Anger of the Gods here. So takes care of his own mana creatures and his opponents.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe at this point it's like, well, I'm falling pretty far behind. I have 4 mana, so I can play this Colossus next turn if I draw a land. But if I play it this turn and he has a Banishing Light, which Majors used to good effect in game 1, then maybe you fall too far behind and something like Anger can't even catch you back up.
Yeah. And that was actually a pretty good play on Weston's part. Had he not cast Anger that turn, Michael was going to play Scion of Vitu-Ghazi and populate the Voice token. And at that point, I almost think the Voice of Resurgences start becoming Anger-proofed, which is really a dangerous spot for Weston.
Yeah, certainly.
So post-Anger, Weston finally did make the Arbor Colossus, got to play it onto an empty board. We'll see how Majors responds. He has a bunch of 5-drops of his own. One of them for him is Archangel of Thune, though. That's one he really doesn't want to play into this board. And so he'll just go for Scion of Vitu-Ghazi. It's going to make a pair of bird tokens. And now it's like, right, the jig is up. Now Weston kind of knows what his opponent's doing. Like, this to me shows a much stronger much stronger commitment to a token strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like a spicy one of at the top end, but it's like, okay, hold on. I kind of see what you're up to now. You know, you got a little populate stuff going on. I get it.
And back on Weston's turn, he's going to go ahead and make a Courser. Going to get a free land off the top, it looks like. That is a forest. And now we're kind of in the each person's going to take turn play the heavy hitters part of the game, where each person's going to keep tapping for really large cards. Weston has the option of swinging here. If he does, Michael can just trade his board with Arbor Colossus. And I would think he's going to make that trade, right? Or maybe not.
Well, it's tough because Majors has a Tactics in his hand. So,
oh, wow, okay.
So it might be like, well, I need these creatures around if I want this Tactics to actually do something. And it's also possible that maybe he wants to just Banishing like the Colossus and mount some sort of offense.
Yeah, we'll see the choice there. He does have, Banishing Light and Tactics, as you mentioned. Does he not have an Archangel? And we'll see his choice here. He's going to go ahead and swing back for 6. And Weston will take it. So both players at 12. Yeah, you see Xenagos. And that's going to be a play for Majors.
It looks like just making mana.
Yep, going to plus it for 5 mana. And then he's for 3 mana, to play Banishing Light. 1 excess mana pool. Not going to do anything with that one.
And that's a good play for Majors. I like that a lot because he gets the Xenagos in play virtually for free. Because if you're going to spend your turn to cast Banishing Light, you might as well get the Xenagos out there, especially when Weston can attack it down with Courser. So you lose a little bit of loyalty, but you actually save 4 mana in the long run.
Yeah, and having extra loyalty on Xenagos actually isn't particularly relevant as long as he's still on the battlefield, right? He doesn't like play better with 4 loyalty than with 2.
Right, yeah. I think for the most part, Xenagos is just using the 0 ability over and over and over again. So to that end, it doesn't really matter if it's on 2 or 3, you know, it's roughly the same thing. And then this sets Majors up to potentially like make a Satyr next turn and then have a big Cetessan Tactics turn either this turn or next turn.
Yeah. A good spot for Majors. The play this turn from Weston was Pelukrinos. He has 1 card remaining. Elvish Mystic shows as the top card on his deck.
I think the last card in Weston's hand is his 1-of copy of Fleshblood.
Ooh, that's all right. That's interesting here. He doesn't have black mana to go crazy with it.
There is always that option with Sylvan Caryatid if you have that, but currently not now.
All right. Back, and with that, he passes back to Majors' turn. Xenagos is going to do exactly as you mentioned. They're just going to start making Satyr tokens again. And we'll see Majors is going to go ahead and continue being aggressive here. And it looks like, yeah, Scion of Vitu-Ghazi might attack as well. It's just Scion and 1 bird.
So I like this. This is enticing Weston to block the Scion, at which point Majors can tactics all of his guys. And then you saw that he kept the 1 flyer back, which is kind of suspicious, seeing as how like Weston can't block it and can't shoot it down with Pelukrinos or anything. So it looks like Majors is going to try and use the tactics to also use the flyer and the Satyr to take down the Courser potentially.
Right. Weston sniffs something out there and decides just to take all the damage, and he goes to 7. And like that's also a result that Majors is fine with.
Right. So he kind of misses out a point of damage from the flyer, but if he attacked with everyone and Weston just blocked Pelukrinos on the Scion, you don't want to just use tactics to trade tactics and Scion for Pelukrinos necessarily. So you lose on a point of damage to potentially deal him 4 extra damage. So I like that play.
And even having tactics up here is really strong too, because if Weston goes for a monstrous on Pelukrinos, if he tries to kill too many things, Majors will get him with it.
Yeah.
He'll pump whatever he does. And Weston's going to go for a very modest pump here. He's just going to monstrous for 1 to try to kill the flyer. And we'll see whether Majors chooses to save his flyer. I'm not sure he's going to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the 1/1 is obviously reasonable, right? Like the board is kind of stalled on the ground, so maybe you need those 1/1s to get in through the air. But at the same time, like tactics has so much more potential that I could see wanting to save it.
He's going to tactics the Satyr token and the bird. Looks like he's going to go ahead and kill Courser then. He's always going to have them. But okay, they're both fighting Pelukrinos in response to the monstrous ability. But there's some danger. Weston can just monstrous again in response to the tactics.
I mean, it depends on when he does it, right? Because there's the
so
monstrous
the token's
trigger
already on.
and then the fight trigger.
So, well, it depends when he did it, right? I'm wondering how they killed the...
Oh, sure,
the
yeah. So
was he a 6/6 or a 5/5?
Well, I think he was doing it like in response. So yeah, you are right that Weston could have monstrous again.
And if he'd done that, then like Major's play doesn't do anything, right? Use monstrous again and killed that bird the second time?
Well, yeah, you can try and do that, but you can try and fight something else for 1, but then the Pelukrinos will have 5 damage on it from the 2 fights and the 1 from the bird.
No, it's like in response to the tactics, if he monsters for 1 a second time and refights the same bird.
Oh, sure, yeah. Then Majors gets blown out.
Okay. So, either way, that works. So Pelukrinos trades for the 2 creatures. And now Weston's without a large guy on the board. He's going to go ahead and play his own copy of Xenagos. And Courser's helping a bit here. But he does... I think both players are playing off the top of their decks right now.
Yeah, except Weston kind of has the added advantage of knowing his top card, but I guess like Majors also has that advantage. So like now he knows what he has to play around at all times.
Right. And we see a swing from Weston. He's going to try. It looks like he was going after his opponent's Xenagos. Well, see, maybe it's actually just at Majors. Majors takes 2. And Weston's only at 3. That's he's putting himself in a dangerous spot here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might have been similar to game 1, where it's like I can't win, so I'm just gonna attack.
All right, he goes ahead and casts Flesh Blood, but that's not going to be lethal. Majors is just going to make a Satyr and swing in, and that should take the game and match for Michael Majors.
Yeah.
So there you have it, 2-0. Michael Majors with Naya tokens moves on to round 3, still undefeated. And a match that I actually thought that was pretty close there. I don't know, that